I recently spent a day with Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era in the Ubisoft offices in Woking of all places, battling through random maps by day and then getting thrown into an arena tournament in the afternoon against a lot of familiar creators like Spiffing Brit, Orbital Potato and Rar by the afternoon, and frankly it was a great way to test both the game and my tactical nuance. My name is Tom and this is LT Gaming. We cover everything in strategy, deep dives into all sorts of games and previews without all the usual faff and nonsense. If this does sound like your sort of thing, give the video a like, feel free to subscribe if you think I do a good job, and consider a channel membership if you want to support us a bit further. So, if you did watch my demo coverage back in January, you know I wasn't fully sold on Olden Era. I liked parts of it, but I wasn't exactly head over heels either. So this event was a proper chance for me to give it a sense check. Chance to spend real time with the game, see how it's shaping up, and whether it's feeling like a proper Heroes return ahead of its April 30th release. Gotta say, everyone at the event was lovely, Hooded Horse, Ubisoft, and my fellow creators. It was a really nice mix of YouTubers and Twitch faces, a lot of people you would know, and the whole day had a very relaxed atmosphere, plenty of time to chat, connect, and I managed to avoid embarrassing myself for the most part. So, does the game actually feel like a Heroes of Might and Magic entry? And that is really the big question for everyone, I think. Because with something like Olden Era, it's not enough to just look like a Heroes game from a distance, have the sort of art you'd expect, the towns of resources, and then hope nostalgia will carry the rest for you. It has to feel right. And honestly, after the event, I'm in a much better place than I was after the demo. One of the first things that stood out to me was how readable the game was. I still think there's room to improve it further, so I'm not going to pretend like that issue has completely vanished into the ether, but it's made some strong leaps forward. I found it a lot easier to parse what I was looking at, navigate around the space, and settle into the familiar Heroes rhythm without feeling like I was fighting the presentation a bit. And the rhythm really did start to click for me this time. Within the first week of game time, I had my hero chains up and running, collecting resources, moving troops around to my main hero, and I just slipped back into the classic Heroes mindset. We are thinking about efficiency, tempo, and how to squeeze the most out of every turn. And building that feeling of momentum across the map, and gradually stitching your position together, and I never really got that in the demo, I gotta say. Here I felt right at home in the Heroes headspace, and I came away feeling much better about the faction design and overall balance. The factions felt very varied, distinct, and they each had their own flavour. Rather than just being cosmetic swaps with slightly different hats on, there was a very clear sense of identity to how they were going to play, and it helped matches and maps feel much more dynamic as the day went on. What I liked as well was I fairly quickly started to get a read on some improved synergies and tactical interactions. There were bits of game logic about how you want your army to function, and they began to reveal themselves in a natural way, and I chatted a bit with one of the Unfrozen team who were there, and I got some good insight, for example, into the focus system, how you can effectively farm that resource with your army by having more stacks to get more ability usage out of a fight. And this is one of those moments where, when it all clicked, it stopped becoming just another turn-based strategy with a hero's skin, and instead I was playing a hero's game I'd wanted to play for a very long time. Now, I've been hands-on with the game all week, and it's only further cemented these opinions, so it's not just a flash in the pan and an event in Woking and my mind has changed. It feels like the systems are talking to each other now in a way that I never got from the demo. Now, before I get too deep into the factions, I think it's worth touching on how Olden Era is structured from a gameplay point of view, because there's actually a decent spread of ways to play the game now. For me, classic mode is still the heart of it. This is where the proper heroes magic lives. You're using multiple heroes, managing the wider map, you build up your economy of course, chaining your heroes forward and getting that lovely creeping sense that one more turn has somehow become another hour of your evening gone forever. And it lets you lose templates and the random map generator, which for me is a massive plus because this is where a lot of the long-term replayability comes in. Then you've got the single hero mode, which is basically a much more focused spin on the formula. It's a bit tighter, a bit faster, you're limited to one hero, and I think it's a lot less intimidating for people who don't want to go full goblin mode on optimization and chaining efficiency. Arena, meanwhile, is the quick, direct, slightly chaotic version. You draft a hero, their equipment, an army, and then you get straight into a duel. To be honest, this feels like playing Arena mode in Hearthstone, and this is what we use for the Creator Tournament, and honestly I think it's a really smart addition that's going to add a lot to the game. Then you have Scenarios, which are the handcrafted maps with their own setting and flavour. I like they're there, but to be honest, there's not much in there right now. They definitely need to build this side out. Then there is the campaign, which I've played a fair few missions of now over the past week of access. It's interesting, it feels a bit different for heroes. There's a lot more narrative framing, you actually have to make dialogue choices, and faction alignments are affected by this depending on what you do and say. So it has a slightly different flavour from the more straightforward campaign structure older players might be used to. I'm enjoying it so far, but I do need to say one thing very clearly. Please get rid of unskippable cutscenes. It's made my life a nightmare trying to replay different ways. So overall, I think the mode spread is pretty great. A lot of stuff for new players to bring them into the game, and a lot that old players will connect with as well. Okay, so since the event and the week I've had with the game since, I've already seen the factions emerge into different flavors for different kinds of players, and this is exactly what you want from a Heroes game. So I'll do a quick walkthrough of them all. Who are they going to be for? So if you're the sort of player who wants the familiar, the reliable, and an all-round Heroes experience, Temple is probably the easiest faction to connect with. They've been my main bread and butter for the past week or so. Range strength really stands out, economy is very good, particularly on bigger maps. And I'm usually able to get Angels online in the first week, and they can absolutely carry you. So dependability and comfort, Temple makes a lot of sense. Now, if you're the sort of player who wants flexibility, tactical variety, and clever use of your toolkit, then Dungeon feels brilliant. And honestly, from a pure gameplay perspective, I think they're my favourite. The dual attacks they have give them versatility, the whole roster feels lively and adaptable, and it's just a very Heroes type of faction. Now, if your instinct is to gravitate towards the darker, more thematic and slightly specialised end of the roster, then Necropolis is probably going to pull you in. This is an old favourite of mine from Heroes 2 and 3, but I still need more time with them. I haven't really cracked them yet. They've got a strong identity and a very particular flavour, but it is different from the former games, and it's not something I've fully synced with. Now, if you want to play aggressive and up close, the faction you're going to feel at home with is the Hive. Brutality is the theme here. I find them very tough to play, mainly because they don't give you any sort of ranged backbone like some of the other factions do, and you gotta get up close and nasty. Reminds me a lot of Inferno from Heroes 3, for example. But if you're more on the specialised ability driven and less immediately intuitive end, then Schism might be the one you connect with more than I have. They're probably my least favourite faction so far, but it's more about taste than quality. They've got some cool ideas, abilities and units in there, I just haven't quite clicked with them personally. Then finally there's Grove, which feels like the players who want to invest now for a bigger payoff later. Meaning their units are very expensive, and especially on smaller maps you do feel this, but they become a late game powerhouse if you can get them rolling. Now, coming on to the Creator Tournament, and probably the most immediately fun part of the whole event, I want to walk you guys through this because Arena really isn't the same thing as standard Heroes play. The closest comparison I can think of, it's like a Hearthstone Arena draft mode, where there's clearly skill involved, but there's also a decent bit of luck depending on what sort of hero, spells, units, and tools you actually get offered. Now, I had barely played this mode before the event, so I went in with a conservative mindset. I wasn't trying to invent the next great battlefield doctrine, I was just trying not to get folded instantly in front of half of the internet. So when I saw my first match was against Spiffing Brit in round 1, I thought, great, I'm probably going to get cooked pretty quickly here. For that match, I decided to go with a magic heavy build, and thankfully I got a nice run of spells alongside some strong ranged units that suited a defensive posture. Spiff had gone in a somewhat magical direction as well, but his setup leaned into the melee side. It really worked in my favour because he had to close the gap, and with a massive big spell point pool and some strong ranged pressure, I was able to control the mid-game fights and somehow take the win, much to my relief. In the next round, I ran into Akkard, a very talented Twitch streamer, who definitely looked very at home in this kind of setup. The draft options I was given, I had to go with a melee heavy spell build, and I really lived to regret this one. I came up against a proper attack and defense juggernaut with loads of ranged threats and abilities to back it up, and fair play to Akkard, he used them brilliantly. I got absolutely shredded from range before I could even close the gap and do what my build was supposed to do. Then I came on to my last match against Orbital Potato, who's not only a great YouTuber but also a lovely bloke, which made it slightly awkward when I had to go out and try and flatten him with my angry stacks of temple units. This time though, I changed up the approach. I went for a stronger attack and defense setup with some really solid creature stacks, including a massive stack of Inquisitors, which are a late temple unit, and I got a bit lucky here because despite having limited magic, I managed to pick up an important spell, which was Blink, and this turned out to be absolutely massive. It's a short teleport spell, and combining this with expert tactics, I could cross the battlefield quickly with my Inquisitors, and I hit Orbital hard before his magic heavy setup could really settle in, and once I got across the map it was pretty much that, and the Inquisitors carried me to my win. And honestly, those 3 matches together are why I came away thinking Arena could be a really big part of Olden Era's appeal, especially for streaming and online play. So after the event and another week with the game on top of that, where do I land on Olden Era? The biggest positive for me is that compared to the demo, the game is actually clicking with me in a lot of ways I hoped it would have. The clearest example is map flow. It's a lot easier to read than it was before. Still not perfect, mind you, but improved enough that I could finally settle into the proper hero's rhythm of chaining heroes, gathering resources, moving my troops forward, and just building that momentum across the map. The early game loop never quite landed for me in the demo, and now it starts to feel right. The factions are another big plus. They feel distinct, they're worth learning, they all seem aimed at different kinds of players rather than just offering surface level variety. I haven't clicked with all of them yet though, and honestly, that is part of the appeal for me. It suggests there's a lot more to learn, there's some depth here. For me, classic mode is where the real magic still lies. This is where the game feels most strongly like the Hero series to me. The wider map play, the economy, the exploration, the gradual build up, but I can see the single hero mode being a smart addition for people who want something tighter and a bit less full on the optimization min-max front. Then I come on to Arena, which I've really taken to and I didn't think I would have. I think the mode could be a genuine hit for streaming and online play. It's quick, flexible and very easy to enjoy as both a player and a viewer. Another strength is that the game's combat synergies have become a lot clearer now over the time. The more I play, the more I see the interactions between spells, focus, army composition and faction identity starting to make sense. I do think a bit more work is required to really balance things out though. The spell system can be a bit overtly complex, but maybe that's what makes it a bit more interesting too. On my concerns side, the map presentation still needs work. It's improved, but some objects just blend into the environment more than I would like. They don't have that distinctive feel of some of the older games. I think the UI and information delivery could also be stronger. There's a lot going on in the spell system as I mentioned before, which is good, but it's not always immediately obvious what certain upgrades or investments are really doing for you, and a better unit overview and a better hero overview. The icons don't really jump out right now, they're all blending into the background, and I think one of the iconic things is you can look at a hero screen and see exactly where their strengths and weaknesses lie. Scenarios are also a bit thin right now. I'm glad some are there, but compared to the older games, that part of the package doesn't feel as rich yet. And the big remaining question is going to be long-term staying power. I haven't landed with everything in the game yet. Is it going to grip me over some of the older entities which I go back to time and time again? Only time will tell here though. Okay, so to wrap this one up, where do I land on Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era after the event? And I would say around 30 hours of game time over the past week. And honestly, it's in a much better place than I expected it to be. If you saw my demo impressions back in January, you know I had my doubts. I could see the shape of it, but I wasn't fully convinced it was capturing the feel of the game in the way I wanted. Now, after some real time, I think there is some very real progress. So to wrap it all up, I would say Olden Era no longer feels like a game I'm cautiously circling from a distance with some reservations. It's actually one I want to keep playing. And for a new Heroes game, I think that's an important hurdle to clear for myself. So overall, I'd say Olden Era is shaping up very well. If you want me to review the game fully, let me know and I'll do this closer to the release date. And yeah, now over to you guys. Jump down in the comments, let me know your thoughts on the video, your thoughts on the game, and what you're most keen to get your hands on with it. Alright, cheers for watching everyone, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye now.